I have known Craig for about 13 years. I first met him as a first year law student at Seattle University. And from the very first time that I spoke to him, he has been a mentor to me. Any decision I make, whether to become a prosecutor, to leave the prosecutor's office, to come back to the prosecutor's office, I consult with Craig about that. He oftentimes, as I started as a prosecutor in our office, as I've talked about before, there were not a lot of prosecutors who looked like me. And so I would reach out to Craig about things that I was experiencing in the office, things that were hard for me in the office, and things that were going well. And I'm sure I'm one of countless students and countless people on this call that he has mentored in some capacity. So a little bit about Craig. He is currently about 2 years been with the law firm of Schrader, Goldmark, and Bender. He is a civil attorney now, and he has a long record of securing verdicts, to include record-setting jury verdicts for some of his personal injury cases. He was a senior deputy prosecuting attorney for King County Prosecuting Attorney's Office, and he was here for about 10 years. One of his highlights, and there's many, but one of them was that he was the first, and as far as I know, has been the only Black attorney in our most dangerous offender program, kind of our elite unit in the office. Also, as a King County senior prosecuting attorney, he was a juvenile supervisor and did our special assault unit trials. He then went on to become the chief criminal leader at the city of Seattle for 6 years. And he there also became the first Black chief to do that. As I indicated, he is now a civil attorney, and one job that he'll never be able to get rid of is a mentor, which is why he is here to talk to you all and to begin the facilitation of a conversation that has been long overdue about why Black prosecutors or minority prosecutors are needed, and how to utilize our strengths and traits that we have in a criminal justice center. So without further ado, and I could not give him justice in his introduction, I present to you Mr. Craig Sims.
Hey, thank you, Keisha. I appreciate that. And I really do appreciate the opportunity to come and have this conversation, because I see it as a conversation. For many, it'll be the continuation of a conversation, and for some, it'll be the first time that there's ever been an opportunity to have a conversation about race in the criminal justice system, about race and criminal prosecution, and just race in our community. I also wanted to acknowledge all the current and past Black prosecutors that are on this call as well, because I realize the importance of what is going to happen here. And I feel that weight of 1,000 stories that have yet to be told through this conversation and presentation. And I will do my best to honor your experience as I share to the group my own experience, and hope that it will do your story justice. I also want to acknowledge those current prosecutors, specifically Black prosecutors, who are engaged in the challenges of which I will speak of now. I don't want to present to you as if I am the ultimate voice for all Black prosecutors, because I am not. However, I am confident that the things that I will share today will be representative of many stories of people who may be there now, but don't have the courage to share their voice or speak their voice. So I just want to acknowledge that. I want to acknowledge my kids. I think maybe my kids are watching this video as well. I specifically asked them to be here because it's important for them to hear this conversation as well. My motto for several decades, for people who've known me, know that it's I'm preparing my children for the world while preparing the world for my children. And that's been a motto that I've had very soon after my oldest son, Anthony, was born. And that motto means that it's important for them to take part in these conversations, to have an understanding about the way the world really is and the experiences of others so that they can learn from them. But it's also important that they are here witnessing the conversation that I'm having with this larger group, and trying to present information so that people can evolve in their way of thinking based on the information presented to them. And that's my way of changing the world so the world can be a better place for them. The words that are on this screen read as follows. It is said you have three faces: The first face you show the world. The second face you show to your close friends and your family. The third face you never show anyone. It is the truest reflection of who you are. And in this moment, I want to peel the layers back and I want to remove my mask and I want to show you my third face, that which I have very rarely shown to anyone, because it's important now that you understand from my perspective, my experience. And it is something that only very few people who are walking this earth at this moment have been made aware of. So how I want to start this conversation is with this picture. And this picture was taken September 22nd of 2011. And I'll tell you more about it as we progress through this conversation. But as you look at this picture, on the left side of the picture in the brown suit is my dad, Reverend John Sims. And on the right side is me. This was taken September 22nd, 2011. And mind you, I graduated law school at Seattle University in 1997. And throughout the course of my career up until this point, I've had amazing professional opportunities, starting off my time with the King County Prosecutor's Office and being promoted to senior deputy prosecutor, being allowed an opportunity to be a supervisor, being allowed an opportunity to join the Most Dangerous Offender program and work on high-profile cases. I've also had the opportunity to represent clients in private practice, as well as be the chief criminal prosecutor for the city of Seattle, up until the point when this picture was taken. September 22nd, 2011 is what I will say is the first time that I really, truly felt that I have been allowed an opportunity to gain entrance into the Washington State Bar Association. And the first time that I believe that I have truly been seen as a lawyer. Going back, this picture here that you see is a picture of me, and I was a handful of years old. So I'm the third of four boys, and I grew up in a south suburb of Chicago, Illinois, originally named Park Forest South, Illinois, now renamed and known as University Park, Illinois. I'm the third of four boys, and there was a lot of discipline in my household. And so we were raised to be respectful of all people and respectful of each other in my household. When I was in sixth grade, I remember watching a television show called Perry Mason, and it was myself and my cousin Michelle. We were sitting there in front of the TV watching this show. But for some reason or another, this time when I was in sixth grade, I announced to my cousin, who was sitting right next to me, that that's what I was going to do. I'm going to be a lawyer. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know how I was going to get there, because when I graduated from law school in 1997, I was the first person down to the roots of my family tree who had attended law school and graduated law school. And so I didn't know how it was I was going to get there, but I knew that for some reason or another, that's what I was meant to do. And so as I evolved in my high school career, I did pretty well. And then I went on to attend the University of Oregon for undergrad. And I knew at that point in time that my sights were still set on law school. How I was going to get there, I didn't know, but I knew that that was my ultimate destination. So fast forward to October 6th of 1993. I was 3 weeks shy of my 21st birthday. And October 6th of 1993 is when my first son, Anthony, was born, Anthony Devon Sims. I was 20 years old, and I was just trying to make a way and just trying to figure it out. And I remember talking to people after Anthony was born. Specifically, I remember a conversation with one of my relatives. And one of my relatives told me that essentially at this point, whatever it is I wanted to do, going to law school, whatever it is that my dreams were, they were no longer available to me, because now I had to change paths because I had a son. And I was also told that the world is going to see me differently because here I was, a 21-year-old young Black man, not married, and I have a kid. So I took that information and I put it in my backpack, and I carried that with me even to this very day. Because I was told by those people who were supposed to be there and they're supposed to love me and support me that I wasn't going to be able to do all of those things in which I believe I was destined to do. So I want to pause for a minute, and I want to take you back to the time that you still see here on this photograph, when I was just a young man, a child. As I mentioned, I had 3 brothers, and my parents, I grew up with both of my parents, and my dad grew up in Mississippi, Canton, Mississippi, born in 1943. Canton is about a half hour away from Jackson, Mississippi, which is the state capital. My mom, born and raised in Chicago, lived there her entire life. As we were growing up, my dad would often tell us stories, sometimes the same stories repeatedly, about his life growing up in Canton, Mississippi, and how it was that he interacted and was treated by those who didn't look like him, specifically white people. And he would share with us experiences that, although I never experienced as my own, when I continued to hear those experiences that were presented to me from my father, I adopted them as my own. And I took those experiences and I placed them in my backpack and I carried them with me. And those experiences that were either my own or that were presented to me through the lenses of others helped shape my lens as to how I saw the world and how I approached the world. And so now here I am, fast forward, 21 years old, with a young child, not married, knew that I was destined to go to law school, but yet I had these experiences in my backpack. And so at that point, I put on a mask. And I wore a mask because I was afraid that if people really took the time to get to know me, who I was all about, that they would make judgments about me. And all they would see is, here's this kid who has a young child, not married, and then all these other stereotypes that were out there in the world will be placed upon me, and that's how I will be seen. So now fast forward to the fall of 1994, when we, the group of minority students, were integrated with all of the other classes of the first year at Seattle University Law School. And so I was in section B, and as you all know, for those who haven't attended law school, when they put you in the first year, they place you into different sections. And when they place you into different sections, you're basically with that cohort for all of your classes throughout the entire first year. And I remember myself, and there was only, I believe, one other Black student in my section, Yemi Fleming, who is now an attorney at Microsoft. And so on the first day of class, I'm feeling like I don't belong. There's no one in this class that looks anything like me but for Yemi Fleming. And remember, I'm already seeing with the lenses that have been shaped through my experiences and those that I've adopted through the experiences of others. And I'm already thinking that I don't belong here, and people are seeing me and believing that I don't belong here as well. So I recall at the end of our first class, we were in this lecture style classroom, and the students are out and about mixing, mingling, and they're already forming study groups after the first class, the first day. And they're shouting and they're across the classroom and saying, hey, you want to be my study partner? Hey, let's get together at X, Y, and Z. So as all this is going on, I'm sitting thinking to myself, okay, they see me here. I'm going to get drafted. I'm confident of that. The law school study group draft, 1994. Okay, Craig is going to go high. I got to go high because I took the same entrance test I graduated from an amazing Pac-10 institution. I would dare say the best Pac-10 institution or Pac-12 institution, bar none. But even though I graduated from a great school and I was still a student at the law school, no one could see me. Because when it was all said and done and people had formed their study groups and they'd long left the classroom, the only two people that remained in that classroom that didn't get drafted were myself and Yemi Fleming. And so we looked at each other across the room with that knowing look that this is just the way that it is. We've been here before, and it will not be the last time that we will be here. And so we formed our own study group with others that had similar experiences to our own. So at that moment, people could not see me when it came time to form a study group. Now, fast forward, same week, Friday, guys, men and women would go to the undergrad gym to play basketball. So the first week on that Friday, I like basketball. I went to the gym and I'm sitting there on the bench and I'm lacing up my basketball shoes. Hadn't dribbled near one bounce of a basketball. And I know some people see it already coming. Now, round one, the first pick of the Seattle University shirt skin pickup basketball game, Craig Sims. Now you can see me. Now you can see me when it comes time to play basketball and all those physical and athletic pursuits. But just 4 days prior, some of you very same people who were here in this gymnasium, you couldn't see me for one moment when it came time to form study groups and for those intellectual pursuits. Okay, I got you. No problem. If that's how you want it to be played, then let's play it that way. So I put on a mask and I continued to wear my mask. Right around the same time, my first year at law school, I was doing some reading and I came across this poem, We Wear the Mask by Paul Laurence Dunbar. And it's a poem that became very important to me. And it essentially was my theme as I walked through this world. We wear the mask that grins and lies. It hides our cheeks, yet shades our eyes. This debt we pay to human guile, with torn and bleeding hearts we smile, and mouthed with myriad subtleties. Why should the world be overwise in counting all our tears and sighs? Nay, let them only see us while we wear the mask. We sing, but O great Christ, our cries to thee from tortured souls arise. We smile, but oh, the clay is vile, beneath our feet yet long the mile. We wear the mask. And so every day when I left my apartment and went to law school, I put on my mask. And I didn't share any bit of personal information about me to any of my law school classmates. Because it was my perspective that, number one, if they knew anything about me, that they'd lump me into some stereotypical category. But also, number two, based upon the way that I saw the world and based upon my first couple of days and my experiences, no one even wanted to know who I was, and I was invisible, and I couldn't be seen in any way, shape, or form. We wear the mask. And so as I wore this mask, I went to law school and I talked about the Supreme Court decisions, the advance sheets. I kept all of that with me. So when people attempted to have a conversation with me about sports, regardless of how well-meaning they may have been, and at that time I didn't know and I couldn't see it, I would always shift the topic and I would always talk about something else that is not sports related to let people know that I have a brain and that I can participate in intellectual activities just as well or even better than anyone else here in this room. We wear the mask. I was also given from one of my mentors, it's a book entitled The Bell Curve: Intelligence and Class Structure in American Life. And this book was given to me by my mentor, who is also a fellow Black lawyer. And he told me that I need to always keep this book in my eyesight, because this book was meant to serve as uh, statistical evidence to confirm that Black men specifically are intellectually inferior to white men and women. And so going all throughout uh, law school and wearing this mask, I was elected in my first year as the class student body representative to the Student Bar Association. Man, this mask is something else. It's amazing. It's working. My second year of law school, I was elected as the president of one of the student bar associations. This mask is something else, because I am being allowed to have these opportunities that in my mind I wouldn't have believed existed had people knew who I was, because they didn't have the information to be able to lump me into these stereotypical categories. Now, my third year of law school, I was elected as the first Black person to be the Student Bar Association president, the Student Government Association president of Seattle University Law School. This mask thing is amazing, because the proof to me was that it was necessary and it worked, because when people didn't know anything about me, I was allowed all of these opportunities that had they known me, I may not have been able to have them. Now, I want to pause for a minute, and I want to go back and confirm that upon reflection, I could have done things differently, because I want to be very clear that upon reflection and not allowing people to know me, and not allowing my family, my son at that time, Anthony, to get to know the people in my law school and have that experience, I was depriving both sides of my life from each other. And now it hurts. And I am somewhat ashamed of it, but that's what I believed I needed to do in order to survive, and in order to experience and be allowed to have these experiences to succeed. I was made to feel as though, again, not from what someone said, because people probably weren't even thinking about me in that way in law school, but this is how I saw the world. But I was depriving myself of the ability to be my complete, true, and authentic self throughout my law school career. But now let me fast forward a little bit. Still wearing the mask, I was allowed an opportunity to serve as a King County prosecutor, first under the leadership of the late Norm Mailing, and then the tail end of my career under the leadership of Dan Satterberg. During the time where I was at the prosecutor's office, I was still wearing a mask. Because understand, when I started there at the county prosecutor's office, I could count the number of Black prosecutors on one hand. And I can name them all for you right now if you want me to, but I'm choosing not to. And it was yet and still a very lonely and isolating experience, because I didn't believe that there were people who were there that truly understood my story, my perspective. And so I continued to wear a mask for several years while there at the county prosecutor's office. And it was primarily because I didn't feel as though I truly belonged, and that people even wanted me there or could even appreciate all that I had to offer by being there. And so the community of people that I truly opened up to were the community of people who look like me, who had similar experiences, where we can go into someone's office and close the door and truly debrief and be ourselves. And then when we open the door and walk out into the hallway of the fourth, fifth floor, the second floor, wherever building we're in, we had to put that mask on and be the person or the people whom They expected us to be, because it was a different world for all of us, a world in which many of folks that walk those hallways didn't feel as though they can truly be a part of it. And so over the years, I continued to wear this mask. And over the years, I continued to rise in my career. And in a handful of years, while serving at the county prosecutor's office, I was promoted from a deputy to a senior deputy. And within that same time frame, I was given the opportunity by the leadership there at that office to join this team, this most dangerous offender program team that some people strive for a career. And I was given that opportunity. And in my mind, I was thinking I was provided those opportunities because, you know what? This mask is serving me well because they do not know who I am. They do not know truly who I am and what I'm all about, because at that point in time, they didn't know anything about me yet and still, but for the close circle of people that shared my experience that I felt as though I could truly and honestly open up to. And there were a couple of experiences that I'll share at this moment where, to show you how deep this ran and how now upon reflection, I'm shameful of it, but it was something that I felt I had to do as a Black attorney in order to survive and succeed, not only in the prosecutor's office, but in the legal community. And in wearing this mask, I recall there was a time in April of 1999, April 20th to be exact. April 20th, 1999, I was still serving as a deputy in the juvenile division of the King County Prosecutor's Office. And on that day, on April 19th, is when my significant other went into labor with my second son. Braden is his name. And I left work that night, and Braden was born on April 20th, that next day. I called my supervisor, and his name is Mike Lang, an amazing lawyer, an amazing human being. He's no longer with the county prosecutor's office. I haven't seen him in years, but I have an amazing amount of respect for Mike. But Mike was my supervisor, and I called in sick on April 20th. And on April 21st, I called in sick again. And on April 22nd, so I was out the 20th, the 21st. On April 22nd, I returned back to my office there in the old juvenile hall. And Mike came into my office and he said, "Hey, are you okay? Everything good?" And although I was gone for the birth of my son, I couldn't tell him the reason why I was gone. Because now at this point, although I loved Mike and had an amazing amount of respect, I had built up this thing, this place, this not a persona, but this narrative that now I couldn't break. And so I simply said, yeah, all's good. Thanks for asking. And I just continued on my merry way. And let me be very clear. And it hurts me to tell this now, but it's important for people to understand that although this is my story, I'm not alone in terms of feeling as though I needed to wear a mask. And so although it's hurtful for me to say this, I want to be very clear. This was not done because I was ashamed of my children or ashamed of my family, in no way, shape, or form. I saw it at that moment in time as being an opportunity for me to pave a way and to do some things to make sure that I can make things better for them so they wouldn't have to deal with all of this nonsense. And the higher I can rise and the more that I can do and provide for them, the more opportunities they would have. That was my way of thinking. Again, remember, because of my backpack, because of the way that I viewed the world based upon the experiences I've had and the experiences of others. Would I have done it differently knowing what I know now? Absolutely. But I would need to be very clear if my kids are watching or if they will ever view this video at any time in the future. You know that I love you, and I always have. And when I'm telling this story, please understand and always remember, it's not because of shame that I had two separate worlds. It was because I felt as though that's what I needed to do in order to survive, in order to navigate my way through this world of the legal profession. And so now here I am at this point now where I have established and developed this narrative or this legend where I wouldn't say anything false about myself. I would just not share any information because I didn't want people to know who I was. Because now at this point, I'm doing okay. I'm getting promoted in what I was thinking about in terms of letting people see what I wanted them to see, putting on this mask. They only see my outer self and not truly my third face and the reflection of what's within. I was continuing to rise and to evolve and to break down barriers and do things and be the first at things that people were never able to accomplish. So now I want to take you back to September 22nd of 2011. And in this moment, it was, as I mentioned earlier, the first time where I truly felt as though I was allowed to be a part of this legal community, because for so long, and even at times today, to this very day, I feel as though I'm still somewhat of an outsider, regardless of what you see. And you can see on my wall behind me, regardless of how many certificates I have on my wall or how many trophies or whatever it may be, I still sometimes feel as though I'm an outsider and that I will never truly be accepted into this legal profession. But yet on this day, September 22nd, 2011, is a pivotal moment for me. And here's why. So this moment, as you see here with me and my dad, we're holding a trophy, a glass statue or glass trophy. And it's here, and I keep it here in my home, and I'm showing it here. For those folks who can't see, I'm showing it here on the video. And also on the video is a picture of me and my dad holding this very same trophy. And here's why this moment was a pivotal moment for me. So as I said, my dad grew up in Canton, Mississippi, born in 1943. And he'd always talked about how he was treated in his family by white people growing up in this town and in the town of Canton, Mississippi, and how he wasn't allowed to do certain things and he wasn't allowed to live up to his true potential that he very well could have lived up to, but for his life circumstances. And he always talked to me and my brothers about how he always wanted to be a lawyer. But, just life circumstances and challenges, just he wasn't provided the opportunity to do it. So when I went to law school, my dad went to law school, and he called me quite often. Hey, what are you studying? What are you doing? Oh, talk to me about that. Okay, tell me about that. Then when I graduated law school, started off at the county prosecutor's office, he'd call me just as regularly. Hey, what kind of cases are we working on today? No, we're not working on any cases. I'm working on some cases. We're not doing anything, but here's what we're doing. And I remember there was a time where my dad, he was in town for some reason or another, I can't recall, and he was able to watch me do a trial. It was at the RJC. It was when I was in the sexual assault unit. And he remembers the defense counsel was Don Miner. If anyone on the call know Don Miner, he's a public defender, an appointed lawyer for the county, great guy, another Black lawyer. And it was in front of Judge Matson, who is now long retired. And I remember him being there for a day watching the trial. And he still talks about that trial. And that was, I don't know how many years ago, well over 10 years ago. And he talks about it as if it just happened yesterday. And he always asks, hey, how's Don Miner doing? How's Mr. Miner? And I hadn't seen Don Miner in a while, but because I need to cut the conversations, because he can talk about that forever. I tell him Mr. Miner's fine, I'm sure. and we keep talking about it. But I say all that to say that my dad was just as engaged in my practice of law as I was, maybe even more so. And so when I graduated law school, my dad graduated law school. When I was in trial, my dad was in trial. And in many respects, I was, and still am, have the honor and ability to help him live out his dream. Because as I said, I'm the first down to the root of my family tree in terms of being a lawyer. And so I understand the weight that that carries as well. And so this picture was taken September 22nd, 2011 at a Washington State Bar Association annual dinner. And I was presented with an award at that program. And it was the Washington State Bar Association Professionalism Award. And I was presented that award for whatever reason someone saw in me that year, and I was granted the honor of being one of the most professional lawyers in the state of Washington. And so this was kind of a big deal, because this is the association that I was part of where there were very few people that looked like me. And now here I was seen. And it took me from again, my perspective, from 1994, June, or it was September now, 1994, to this date in 2011 to be seen. But I was being seen for what I did as a lawyer. So at this dinner, my family came up. My older son, he just started undergrad school. It was his first week, I believe, of school, and the dinner was on a Thursday, and he was in class, and he was in out of town in Portland. But my middle kid came. My youngest daughter, Brooklyn, she may have been there, but she was way too young to really appreciate the moment. My family was there. My mom, my dad, relatives flew in from Chicago, because this was a big deal for the family. But we were one of the very few Black people there in this reception and at the dinner. And I remember Paula Lustbader, my professor, and David Berner were also being honored at that very same dinner. So it was an amazing opportunity for us to celebrate this day together for what we've done and the changes we made in this legal profession. But I remember Paula coming up to my dad during the reception, and she said, "Reverend Sims, I need you to understand that this is a big deal. For your son to be presented with this trophy or this award and this honor by this organization, being the first, what she believed to be, me being the first Black person to be honored with this particular award, was a big deal. And he needed to understand that." And I didn't really put too much thought into it until she said it. And then again, the gravity of all of it, again, the first, really took hold on me. So we're at the dinner, and my family is sitting at one table, and it was time for me to be presented with this award. And President O'Toole, Steve O'Toole, was the outgoing president. He was the one that was doing the presentation of the awards. So as he called my name, he had me come to the stage. And as I stood up to come to the stage, I tapped my dad on the shoulder. I said, "Hey, why don't you come up here with me and come get this award with me?" So he jumps up like he was expected to be coming up on stage, and he was standing there on stage. And so at the podium was President O'Toole. Then it was myself standing to President O'Toole's right, and then my dad was standing to my right. And as President O'Toole was reciting the basis for me being presented with this award, my dad was standing on stage right next to me. And had you walked into that room at that very moment, you would not have had any idea who was getting that award, whether it was me or my dad, because he was standing there just as proud, like, yeah, they're talking about me. Everything they're saying is about me. And so President O'Toole, finished the introduction and the recognition. And then he handed me he handed, this trophy to me. And so when I got the award, I grabbed it from President O'Toole, and then I immediately passed it off to my right and gave it to my dad. And at that moment, it was one of the most amazing feelings that I've ever had in my entire life. And the reason why it was amazing for me was because here we are, me and my dad, knowing what he's been through, his story and my story that carry the weight of his burdens and the burdens of so many other people, many of whom I've never met. We're right there on that stage, and we're looking out at the several hundred people who are a part of this part of this ceremony. And I think we both saw it at that moment, like they see us. We are being acknowledged. We are being seen. We are breaking barriers in a way that neither of us could have ever imagined. Me dating back to when I was in 6th grade, declaring I was going to be a lawyer, and he dating back to his time of origin on this earth in 1943 in Canton, Mississippi. And so, I'm not tearing up. I was just cutting some onions earlier, so it's just now making its way to my office here. So we'll edit that and post editing. Don't worry about that. So when my dad took hold of the award, it was time for us to go. And he was standing there on stage, and so I had to tap him on the shoulder, and we had, I told him it's time to go. I was pointing to the stairs there. And and this is no exaggeration, I promise you this is the truth. He stopped before he went down the stairs, stood at the edge of the stage. He turned around to the group of the people there, raised both hands in the air, trophy in his left hand, exposed hand of testimony, his right hand of fellowship, and it raised to the air, and yelled out the loudest woo-hoo I have ever heard in my life, as if it was finally an opportunity for him to exhale, right? And so I remember him screaming, and I look out into the audience, people are laughing, they're crying, because so many people, even though we didn't sort of announce what was going on, understood, I think, intuitively, the importance of that moment. So we go down to the stage, and there is this black curtain that was there, and people who are being presented the awards are to stand in front of the black curtain, and that's where me and my dad are standing in front of here at this stage. And so the photographer says that she wanted to photograph me with the award. So I go to my dad. I said, "Hey, Dad, I need the thing." So I get it from my dad, and as I put one hand in the middle and one hand on the bottom to pull it away, as I pull it towards me, my dad is not letting go. And so he's pulled it back towards him. And so at this point, we just got to take the photograph. And so that's how this photograph that's on this PowerPoint came to be, where my dad was not letting go of that trophy. And as you see, his hands are just as firm a grip on that trophy on the bottom as mine. And he would not let go of that trophy for a very long time. I was scared that I would never get it back, to be honest with you. But eventually I had to sneak it out of his suitcase before he went back home to California. But it was that moment that I truly felt as though, you know what, Dad, we've done it. We've made it. We've accomplished things that neither of us ever thought that we can accomplish. And we've broken barriers, and now people see us. And for me, it was almost as if I could say, you know what, it's done. Finally, it's done. And there is nothing else left for me to do. And now it's no longer me trying to fit into this world. It's me now being a part of this world and opening doors and paving the way for others. who may have the same story to tell and may feel the same way as I do and have felt the same way as I do, but may not have the courage to speak their truth. And also, I'm hopeful that, just by me sharing this experience, it provides an opportunity for people that have known me for a long time to get a different perspective. And although I've had the opportunity to do some amazing things in my career, I still there was still a lot going on internally that I was never able to truly share and was able to truly be myself. So the final thing I want to talk about, and then I want to transition for a few moments, is this magazine. So right now it's what Northwest Lawyer, I believe, is the newest version of the State Bar Association magazine. But back in 2011, it was the Bar News. On the front cover of the Bar News that I have here showing on the PowerPoint is myself and my dad on the top left corner. And so we made the front page, right? And it was pretty cool to see. And I had many, I'll say many, I don't want to exaggerate, many of the Black lawyers that I knew and some that I didn't called me when they received their version of this magazine and expressed their pride in me. And there was one judge, retired judge, specifically Judge Charles V. Johnson, who was one of my longtime mentors and one of the first Black lawyers in the state of Washington. He was the first Black lawyer for Seattle Municipal Court, first Black presiding judge for King County Superior Court. I remember him telling me how proud he was of me, because he was the one, and he and many others like him, that were able to open the doors where it wasn't anything new to be a Black lawyer. And now the opportunities that he and many others, men and women, have opened the doors for folks like me and others to walk through, to receive that acknowledgement of pride from my elders, from those who have paved the way, was equally as amazing as standing there on the stage. Because now it has been made very clear, just by seeing this picture, that we have now been accepted. And it's not just me and my dad who's on the front page of this Bar News. This was symptomatic to a number of Black lawyers in the state of Washington and beyond. And that the State Bar Association, not a local bar association, not a county bar association, but the State Bar Association has acknowledged someone that looks like us. So I just wanted to end with presenting my gratitude for all those people that have given me the opportunity to do the things I've been allowed to do over the course of my career. And that would also include Seattle City Attorney Pete Holmes, who appointed me as the first criminal division chief for the Seattle City Attorney's Office, down to the roots of the charter of the city of Seattle. The folks over at Schrader, Goldmark, and Bender, to allow me the opportunity to practice with them and to do the amazing work that we're doing. I want to confirm how I'm feeling now. And the way that I've evolved is frustration, anger, hurt, to now removing my mask, because I believe that there's an opportunity to move forward. And I am now in the spirit in this presentation of hope, of gratitude and of hope. Because now is the opportunity for whatever tragic circumstances that have brought us to this place. Now is an opportunity to have these conversations, to know that if I'm feeling some kind of way, and if I have this story to tell, that there's so many other people that have them as well. And my job and my reasoning for putting myself out there and for having this conversation is to at least let me start it. Because if we don't have the conversation, and if we can't be honest and talk about things that are real, whether it be personal or institutional, then we're not going anywhere. And we're at a place in time where we have an opportunity. We have an opportunity to adapt and evolve, and not necessarily go back to the way things were, but to accept the lessons of the way things were, to be able to make a better tomorrow.
I want to first thank you, Craig, for being vulnerable and being here to speak to so many people. And at the end of the day, no matter how many people are on this call, we're all family. And so I'm hopeful that you all will take this opportunity to engage in a conversation with Craig and with each other. So I want to start off with a few questions that we have. And so, Craig, one of the first questions is, can you describe a challenge you've experienced while serving as a line prosecutor?
Being a Black lawyer in a field where you are one of very few, and then even now reducing that more to being a Black prosecutor in a field where there are even fewer. There are a number of challenges that I will only choose to talk about a couple of them. The overarching theme that I see in terms of the challenges is I want you to imagine what the experience is like in having a foot in two different worlds. Having a foot in two different worlds where you are truly not 100% accepted in either one of them. And here's what I mean by that. Imagine when you are out in the community and people ask you what you do, and you tell them that you're a lawyer. And then they always ask the next question, what kind of lawyer are you? Imagine when you are being asked that question that you hope that people won't ask, but they inevitably ask it, and you are ashamed to tell them what you truly are, because you are fearful of the response that people will give you, particularly Black people, individuals within the Black community. Because if you tell people that you're a lawyer, you see the pride. Oh, that's all right. That is fantastic. We're proud of you. What type of law do you practice? Criminal law, right? You got to break it down. They got to ask the right question before you really get down to the nub of what you do. Well, I practice criminal law. Where do you practice at? I practice in Seattle, King County. Oh, where's your office? It's at the King County Prosecutor's Office. Ooh, they got to be great interrogators to get down to the nub before I start to tell them that I'm not going to lead with I'm a prosecutor. And the reason being is because for many of the people that I know within the Black community, being a prosecutor means that you work for the man and that you are not truly representing and doing what's in the best interest of the Black community. And that is a very lonely place where on one hand, you know, while you are on the inside, right? I call it the Trojan horse theory. You know that while you are broken in and you are on the inside of the machine and you're doing all that you can to make things right for the individuals that come through that system, even though you're one of the very few voices and a very unique experience and perspective, you know that you're doing all that you can, but people on the outside can't see it. And unless you're working in the criminal justice system as a criminal defense lawyer, you are selling out your community. And now I'm generalizing, of course, understand that. But I'm confident that when I say this, there's somebody out there that's watching that's a Black prosecutor that will truly be able to understand and appreciate where I'm coming from. So you have a foot in that world where it's a somewhat unsteady footing because you can't truly tell people what to do out of fear that you will be rejected by them or made to feel as though you have to justify why it is that you are a prosecutor. So that pride that you see turns to disappointment, then turns to embarrassment, then turns to ridicule. And then here you are at a barbecue where all you're trying to do is eat some ribs and some chicken. And now you feel isolated because now the word is spreading that you are a prosecutor and that you are a sellout to your community. Now going on the other side, here you are as a prosecutor with unsteady footing because you're in a world, again, I'm speaking from my own experience. Now you're in a world that doesn't truly accept you because it's a very unique experience. Number one, there are very few people that look like you that can understand or look like me, that can understand my perspective, that can truly understand and appreciate that I have cousins that have been in prison that are in prison now, that I have family and friends that I know that have been in prison, that have gone through the criminal justice system, that have been treated poorly by the police, myself included, throughout the course of my lifetime. But if I go and share that experience, if I tell somebody, yeah, my cousin so-and-so was in jail or in prison, if I share the experience that I had one of my very good friends was in prison during the time when I was a prosecutor, and I would travel down to Salem, Oregon to go visit him, to support him, not to support what he did, but to support him because I was a friend. And I wanted to make sure that he was able to get through this phase in his life, knowing that the friends that he had before are still going to be with him to this very day. If I told people that on the weekends I was driving to Salem, Oregon, driving 4 hours to visit a friend for 3 hours to drive right back, how would people accept that? How would prosecutors accept that? How would they see me? I had to wear that mask because I didn't believe that people would be able to understand and appreciate that. Imagine if you are walking down the hall and you have fellow prosecutors who are, I'll call them the khaki slacks, blue blazers with a white shirt and the solid tie. That was the uniform of the day. Imagine if you walk by and they're talking about some case that they have and some gang case that they have. And you're walking by and they're trying to talk and mimic how they believe that other people would talk that were a part of a gang. And they're using slang that they believe Black people would use. Now imagine walking down the hall and hearing that. And then further imagine how those very same people, when you're in the room, continue to talk like that, as if there is nothing wrong with speaking that way in front of me, because I am now I'm not like one of them. Imagine how they're describing people as they're dressed in their quote unquote gang attire with their sweatshirts and their jeans and their Chuck Taylor Converse. And imagine when I go home and I look in the back of my closet, hoodies, jeans, my Chuck Taylor Converse. And what the people that they're describing are not only me when I leave this place, but also they're describing the people with whom I am friends with people with whom I am related to. But yet I can't say that because this is now the place that I work. And I don't feel as though I wasn't empowered to be able to speak that truth because there was only one or very few of us that could say anything. And if we did say anything, imagine how we will be ostracized and set aside and made to feel we are less than and not a part of that club. And now imagine going to work every day and dealing with that. Imagine how going to court and you are mistaken by a judge as one of the other Black prosecutors who looks nothing like you, but there's only two of you, and being called repeatedly the other person's name. Now, the first time, sure, it happens. Okay, I accept that. But when it happens on more than the times of the fingers that I have on both of my hands, which are 10, then at some point, it gets to you. But what can you say? That is just a part of life. That is a part of life that, as a Black prosecutor, speaking from my own experience, that we just have to endure if we want to continue to do the work that we are doing, the important work that we are doing, recognizing that we are one and the same, but we have an amazing responsibility to our community that very few people can understand and appreciate. Imagine when going to court in your new suit, and I was just telling the folks before we started this call, going to court in my new suit that I just got from JCPenney's and had it cuffed at the bottom and looking good, and sitting there in the front row of the gallery with other folks that are milling about, attorneys and defendants alike. And imagine being asked, what case am I here for? Am I one of the defendants? Not only by other attorneys that didn't know me, but also by the judge. When I'm wearing the same type of suit as all the other non-Black lawyers who were there. If it happens once, okay, I get it. That's just life. But imagine if that happens again, more than the number of fingers and toes that I have on my hands and feet, which are 20. And then having to just eat it and just accept it for that's just the way that it is. And imagine going through that and having those challenges, but yet there is no one that can truly understand and appreciate it except for those people who are experiencing the same things. So there's challenges. I know it's a long answer, but it's important for me to share those couple of experiences because those are my experiences. And if I'm experiencing them, and I know that there are several others that have experienced them themselves because of the past couple of days when I've been preparing for this presentation, I have heard them, I have relived them, I know them, and they are very real. It further underscores, though, yet the need, although I'm talking about the challenges, I say that to confirm that there is a need for Black prosecutors. There is a need for Black line prosecutors. There is a need for Black elected officials that are prosecutors. There are a need for Black prosecutors who are in positions of leadership within respective prosecutorial agencies. Now, let me pause. And when I say Black prosecutors, I'm only speaking that way and using those terms because of the topic that we're here to discuss right now. But to be very clear, my mindset is diversity. We need to have a diversity of leadership because it is with that varied experience and those different perspectives that we can begin to have an appreciation for all of those things that are going on in the outside, and we can do our best to filter our own experiences to do the best that we can in the service of our community. My time at the Seattle City Attorney's Office, where Pete appointed me in November, I believe, of 2009, and I served there for 6 years as his criminal division chief. And it was an amazing experience and opportunity. But the importance for me being there in that position were several fold. And a couple of them were that I was allowed to be a part of shaping policy, to be a part of shaping how a prosecutorial agency operated and worked and influenced not only the profession, but the community. Some of the things that we were able to do there, while acknowledging issues of race and social justice and being very clear that we acknowledge them and we are using sort of those tools that we are allowed to identify race and social justice inequities in our current and anticipated policies, we're able to put those things front and center as we look to change policies, change the way that we did the business of prosecution. And ultimately, some of those same policies went forth and helped change some of the state laws. And I'm hopeful help influence some of the ways in which other prosecutorial agencies went about the business of prosecution. One of the most important things, though, in addition to being able to influence policy and law in the business of prosecution, was that I was able to hire prosecutors that broke the traditional mold. And let me be very clear before I start getting letters from employment lawyers. I did not hire people because of their race, but is that a factor that I took into account when looking at who I was hiring? Perhaps. I looked at experience. I looked at someone who has perspective across the board, and that could mean anyone. And so when I was done with my hiring processes, by the time that I left out of the Seattle City Attorney's Office, that office looked like and was a reflection, a true reflection of the community in which we served.
What is your perspective on the Black Lives Matter movement and its relationship to the criminal justice system?
In the time that I've spent working as a prosecutor, I have had the opportunity to work with some amazing men and women who have been a part of many police forces throughout the state and throughout the nation. There are some amazing people who are police officers that are now catching the brunt end of the community based upon some things that a small handful of people and officers, their fellow officers, have done. And these officers are made to feel as though it is the community or us versus them. And they're out there putting their lives on the line each and every day. And much of the ridicule that is presented is undeserved for most of the officers who are out there. but I think we can all agree, as in all institutions and all things, that there are some amazing people, but yet there are still a few people that are conducting themselves in a way that's not reflective of the entire organization. And so there's this notion that, or this thought that because people are saying in this moment that Black Lives Matter, that is to the exclusion of police officers. And so oftentimes you see, well, Black Lives Matter, but yeah, Blue Lives Matter too. And of course they do. Of course, police officers' lives matter, but so do Black lives, and so do all lives for that matter. Black Lives Matter, absolutely. And they always have. And here's how I want to reframe the issue. So I often think about, every the Monday that's dedicated in January for Martin Luther King celebration, people are oftentimes talking about his dream and how he has a dream that all men are treated equally, and that people should be judged by the content of their character, yet not the color of their skin. Of course, I'm not quoting, but I'm paraphrasing. But people often, if they even realized or have taken the time, and I challenge each and every one of you on this call to do so, if you've taken the time to read the text of Martin Luther King's speech, there is a passage in that speech that is oftentimes, always overlooked on that respected Monday in January. And essentially, I'm paraphrasing, but I want to make it very clear. Martin Luther King also talked about that America in its Constitution guaranteed life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for all men and women. And that the March on Washington was an opportunity for people, Black people, to come to this very place and let the government know, let the government institutions know that America promised us so many things in the origination of this country. And they wrote us a check that has been marked as insufficient funds. And now we are here on this place to essentially come cash our check. And to come cash our check because you promised us, you guaranteed to us the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But yet in that day on the March of Washington, and in this very day, specific to Black lives and Black Lives Matter, we are still waiting for that check. And now we have been presented with this dream, and it's being held off to the side and held over our head. And as Langston Hughes wrote in his poem, what happens to a dream deferred? And at some point, it's going to explode. And now that's where we are at this moment. And so, setting aside that all lives matter, here's how I want you to think about it. And here's how I'm looking at it, Keisha. All births are the same. We are all born to a woman. And the processes are all the same for each and every one of us. All births are the same. All births are equal. Yet not all deaths are equal. All births are equal, yet not all deaths are equal. Meaning that, yes, when we are here walking this earth, we are all equal in each life, regardless of your race, creed, nation of origin, is equally as important as the other. But now when we look at how it is that we transition from this world through death, through the hands of another, through the homicidal acts of those who are provided the authority to patrol and to service our neighborhoods by police officers, not all deaths are the same. Even if we extend beyond deaths at the hands of law enforcement and we look at just Black communities and we look at the economics of it all, even setting aside the justice system for a moment, look at the economics and look at the mortality rates of individuals in the Black community. All lives are the same and all lives are equal, but not all deaths are equal. And we look at the economics, we look at the educational disparities in Black communities. All lives are equal, but not all educational systems are equal. And so that's how I want to look at it. All lives are equal, all deaths are not equal. Treatment of all lives throughout different institutions are not equal. And so now, as we look at the criminal justice system, now is an opportunity for us to take an honest look at not only who it is that we have in leadership and who it is that is developing the policies and practices and procedures in this criminal justice system, and how is it that the criminal justice system is influencing the different things that are going on in our community. But it's also a time to really look and think about, what is it that we're doing here? How is it that we are providing the resources to police officers to deal with issues that may be beyond their capabilities and their trainings? Specifically dealing with addressing mental health issues, where we call on police officers as a catch-all, where they may not necessarily be trained rightfully to deal with issues related to mental health. If we're an elected official, there's the opportunity to be out front on many of these issues and exercise some courageous political courage in being out front on these issues. And now, based on sort of the evolution, I think it may not even take as much courage, but it will still take some courage nonetheless to buck the current trend and to do something different. Because if you're saying that you want to do something different and you really want something different to happen, you cannot continue to do the same thing over and over again that you've been doing over the years. And that extends far beyond just policies. It extends to how it is that the policies that you have in place, even if they're well-meaning, how are they filtered down and or across your institution or your organizations? If you're the line prosecutors, how is it that you are using your voice and exercising your voice to help influence change, even if it's just having a conversation as a result of what we're doing here, even if it's just having a conversation with your fellow prosecutors? How are you using your voice? What are you doing to help influence the elected official or your supervisors to help establish the change that you want to see? How are you helping influence your friends who you went to law school with that you know are amazing people to become prosecutors, to help change the perspective of those who are doing the work as a prosecutor? For those people who aren't even lawyers, what are you doing in your community? How are you influencing the prosecutorial agencies? How are you influencing by way of voting, by way of becoming involved? There's something that each and every one of us can do. We all have a sphere of influence. Regardless of how small or how large it may be, how low or how high our platform is, we all have the ability to do something. And so what are we doing within our home, within our community, to help influence and make this change? Because we can all agree, if we really take the time to sit and think about and reflect upon these issues and do our own education, that all lives are equal, but as it relates to the criminal justice system, all treatment is not equal.
If you were to give a roadmap or a to-do list to those on this call who are listening, what would you say they could do to help facilitate minority prosecutors and or the issues that we're having socially with Black Lives Matter and police officers and things such as that? What would you tell people, this is what I think you should do?
I mean, it's tough to say because I'm just one person. I don't consider myself to be an expert on this. And I would agree that much of my last answer goes to the root of the question. But what I want to leave folks with is there is always something that we can do. And within your office, if you are an elected official or if you are have the ability to influence your own prosecutorial agency, allowing the space for conversations. And sometimes what that means is you may need to bring in someone from the outside to be able to facilitate the conversation. Because as I've done diversity trainings across this country, I want to acknowledge and recognize that dealing with these issues of diversity, issues of race, and if we really want to have a thoughtful conversation and an effective conversation, it is a hard thing to do because people are walking on eggshells and not wanting to offend or not knowing what to say. And so it is tough sometimes to have a conversation amongst your peers, because you're going to have to walk with this person the next day, and you don't want to be seen as having said something wrong and having that scarlet letter on you. And so maybe that means bringing someone in, a consultant or something like that. And there are plenty of agencies across this country that can help. And if you like, feel free to contact me, and I'll be more than happy to help you connect with those different agencies to begin to have this conversation. As we are having these conversations, and we are in a place, a very we're at a trying place. We're at a crossroads where we are really trying to redefine the soul of our community and redefine the soul of our country. It is absolutely imperative that we not give up hope. And even as I've been going through my evolution, my own personal evolution, I've always come back to the place of hope. Because if we lose hope, then we've lost it all. And especially those people that are in positions of leadership, you have to show courageous leadership, because there's so many people that are following in your example and that are following your footsteps. And so we need courageous leadership so that others who are being guided by your light will have hope. So at the end of the day, we are in a hard place. Let's just acknowledge it for what it is. But we can never give up on hope, because with hope, we can do all things. And one last thing that I'll leave you with is something that Paula Lusbader, again, my mentor from day one, has instilled in me. And it is the philosophy, a South African philosophy of Ubuntu. And what that means and how I interpret it is that we are all interconnected. And I cannot be the best that I can be until you, my neighbor, are the best that you can be. And so we have to be there for each other. We have to be there to help each other. We cannot give up on hope.